Welcome. Today we start a new series entitled Profiting from Your Card Collection, Part 1, Specialty Cards. In this talk, we'll be discussing autographs, short prints, chrome, foil, refractors, nostalgia, relic cards, and digital cards, and many other topics. So we're going to begin with talking about base cards. And base cards are the individual cards that comprise regular sets, whether that set is Topps, Fleer, Donruss, Score, or Bowman, or Stadium Club, or Upper Deck, Pacific, Fleer, Flair, Leaf, any of those cards that are in the regular sets, those are called base cards. Now, part of the collecting in the time, certainly before 1980, these were referred to as vintage cards. As I say, they were cards in sets before 1980, which were primarily top sets, and the definition may vary individually. But this was a time in the 80s and 90s where, in addition to perhaps kids collecting cards, also their fathers and many in that kind of generation was kind of reacquiring cards possessed when they were younger. And they were interested primarily at the beginning of the history and legends of the game, and that was their main reason for collecting. Within those vintage cards, the Topps decks primarily, there were sets within the base sets of approximately 10 to 40 cards that featured players who had similar traits. So cards of the players that have been traded, cards that were rookies, cards of participation in the World Series, turning back the clock, American League All-Stars, as well as stat leaders in home runs, hits, and pitching. There's a term then, once you have the base cards, that are called parallel cards. And what parallel cards refer to as an alternative version of a base card, which features the same photography as the regular issue, but with slight design differences in colors or appearance, or even the feel of the card. And here we see that there's just a slight difference in terms of the logo in the right-hand corner, but otherwise the card appears to be the same card. Here's another card that basically is a chrome card, and they're different designs in terms of the card as it appears as a chrome card. Then probably one of the earliest cards, if not the first card that was considered a parallel card, was the 1991 Topps. At the top, you'll see it's a Desert Shield card where it has a logo for the Desert Shield. On the bottom, it's the standard base card. But other than the shield, they're really the same. Another example, and one of the first cards in the regular sets, was the Topps gold cards. You see on the right, it kind of is embossed with the gold, and in the left, it's the regular base card. So one of the kind of different sets, and actually more pricey cards that kind of fits this parallel, were the Topps Tiffany and also the glossy card set. So what you had were the Topps Tiffany, the Bowman Tiffany, the Score glossy, and the Fleer glossy. And from 1984 through 1991, these cards were different in that they had a glossy coating. So how could you tell the difference between these cards other than the glossy coating? Because it wasn't always as distinct, maybe, but you could tell by the backs of the cards. So many of the cards that were in these sets were white on the back, and the standard cards were the gray. And both Traded and Tiffany had white backs. So now how do you tell the difference between the Topps Traded and the Topps Tiffany? It becomes a little more difficult as the cards look the same on the back and also have the same T for Traded or for Tiffany. And the way that one perhaps could do this is the number of stars on the back, and that confirming a rare Topps Tiffany card might be, as you see these arrows, have 2 stars versus the regular card, which have no stars. But what we find in the years after this is that they kept changing. So there is a reference up at the top where you can go to that site and you can see for the particular year which cards designated by the asterisk are the Topps Tiffany and which ones are the Topps Traded. But a little more difficult, but certainly if you did be fortunate enough to have that Topps Tiffany, the card today is worth many times considerably more, especially if it's a star or a star rookie who made the Hall of Fame. Another term that's quite familiar in terms of the cards and differentiating them is this term variation. So variation means that there's something subtly different, either intentionally or unintentionally. So sometimes these are referred to as errors or corrected errors if they are corrected. These could be related to the font, the color, the photo usage, wording of the text, differences in the backs of the cards. All these would be variations. And they were usually accidental and were often printing errors. So here we see an example of a 1969. Both of these are the Willie McCovey card, but you can see that his last name in one card is in white and one card is in yellow. This is kind of a very interesting variation in the 1962 cards that you see there is green tint in the photo on the left, and it's less focused, and the dirt is brighter green. On the right card, the green tint disappears, and it's much clearer, and basically the card itself in the photo. Another thing that's different is that there is cropping in the car on the right, and it's visible more so on the left, where you see much more of the Indian logo than on the other card. So these were just variations. Now, this is a very interesting variation that was in the 1974 Topps, where players from the San Diego Padres were anticipating to go to the Washington Nationals. And so you see that they're wearing their San Diego outfits like Willie McCovey here, and that the card is listed as he's in the Washington National. Never happened. And the card on the right also never happened, but this is sort of what the card would have looked like if he went to the Nationals. So these are all variations. There's many, many variations continuing today in terms of cards, and some of them very, very subtle. So there also are differences in the cards in terms of what it's made of. And one example is what's called an acetate card. It's a special type of card printed on translucent, kind of see-through stock. It's similar to plexiglass. There also were cards way back in 1968. In fact, they were kind of distributed by the Kellogg. So there were Topps cards that were 3D cards, and it looked like three-dimensional when you looked at the card, not just kind of two-dimensional. And you also had 1987 Score Sports Flicks, which is really like lenticular printing. And that lenticular printing gives it sort of a magic motion using the same player in 3 different pictures. So these were variations, but they were planned and different than the regular cards in the set. There were also cards that were called foil cards, and some of them were due to foil printing or foil stamping, which is a process that involves a foil, think of it as ink, and a metal die, which will have the image to be printed etched into it. So you'll see at the bottom of these cards, they're kind of embossed, and there's different printing and etching, kind of like with foiling. In these next 2 cards, the foil itself is all over the card. It's a shiny or refractive look, but on a more typical flat card. So it covers the entire card. And this one card here is one of the prime catches in terms of profits in the long numbers of rookie cards for Derek Jeter. But these are foils, one that came out in Upper Deck, the other one that came out in Bowman. Okay. Other cards that have kind of something different, and it's a card itself, was a 1902 Upper Deck hologram card. These whole gold, silver holographic foil cards were made by applying a wafer-thin layer of rainbow foil applied onto a card. And so this is what those cards look like. And there were several cards during this time that were called hologram cards. Another holo is found only on cards with kind of a chrome finish. So it was kind of a combination thing going on. Now, Stadium Club came out with a special card to just members of a club in the early years. There was a 25 gold-plated card, this one being of Ryan, that you could apply for. And that was kind of a different card. In 1988, Donruss created Action Pack, which was an embossed or raised pattern that stands out on a card. And these cards were kind of thicker and different, as you can see by the photo. Then there was a popular chrome and refractor cards. In 1996, which came the first chrome cards. It was chrome paper, makes the card more durable. And so Topps and Bowman both kind of came out with numerous cards in their series over and over again of chrome, which were a premium price compared to the regular, or we call the base card. And then there was a refractor card, whereby you hold the card in your hand and you move it back and forth, and good lighting, if it's a refractor, you should see a rainbow-like reflection. So these refractor cards were popular, and then the chrome cards became popular. The very first refractor variant, now they have variants off the refractor card, was the availability was the embossed refractor in 1997. And then Bohm even created other different cards, one of which was called the Bowman Chrome International, where you kind of had a kind of representation of the nation's flag on the card. So as you can imagine, there's kind of unlimited potential for kind of putting these cards together, different chromes, different chrome colors, all sorts of combinations. And just as one example, think about building a 2019 Topps chrome refractor rainbow, where you're including all the different cards that were available for one player, and you'd have as many as 20 different cards that are the same picture, but just as we would call a parallel, had differences in the card itself. And so these are the different names for them. And then here we have actually a layout of all these cards being parallels. They're all the same picture, basically, but they're all different as far as the chrome refractor, blue, yellow, green, and so forth. So lots of variations, and makes it very difficult to kind of hone down which of these cards do I want in my collection, which of these cards are going to make the most profit with, and so forth. So modern Bowman high price rookie. So now we take all these cards and we're thinking, okay, which ones are the best and which ones are going to bring the most money? And so you can see, even though it's kind of very complicated, that get the right card and it can be worth a lot of money. Take, for example, the 2001 Bowman Chrome Albert Pujols autograph card has been recorded to sell for $24,500, or the 2005 Bowman Chrome Justin Verlander autograph card for $1,700, or the 2006 Bowman Chrome Clayton Kershaw, which sold for as much as $2,000. The Bowman Chrome Gold Refractor autograph Mike Trout went for $215,000. And the 2011 Bowman Chrome Prospect autograph Bryce Harper went for $2,076. And the Vladimir Guerrero 2019 Topps Chrome Sapphire Red Refractor went for $26,000. So even though it's kind of creating a complication of the basically kind of weekend collector, people could profit quite a bit if they just happen to get the right card or make the right deal on that card. However, and this is just the way that things go, that as much as these cards sold for, and I don't know what they're selling for right today, but it might change, the card market could go down and they could not be worth as much as the highest that they sold. So these are just kind of trendy, and one has to be very careful in terms of whether to hold on to it or to cash in on that card. Now, there are many, many different insert cards that have occurred over the years, certainly starting in the 80s and going on through the 90s and beyond. But there are certain ones that are kind of special edition cards that have meaning in terms of the whole collection field. And they are on the backs of these cards, many times there's include the odds of getting this insert card. So it might be 3 in 100, 4 in 10,000, or whatever. But we'll go through the ones that are really kind of instrumental in changing the collection. And then one was the 1990s Upper Deck Reggie Jackson autograph. The first pack inserted card to feature a player's signature. So we have now, we're including kind of on the cards a signature of a kind of well-known star player. And you can see on the front of the card in handwritten is the odds of basically, or the number out of so many thousand, 25,000, that card is. Now, 1991 Donruss Elite was the first Main Street insert to use serial numbering on the card. And so serial numbers then afterwards were as many as 1 in 1,000, meaning a kind of limited supply, or 1 in 100, or even 1 out of 1. And this was in the 1991 Elite series of inserts. 1993 Topps Finest Baseball were the first refractors, and that, of course, were worth a lot more, cost a lot more right from the start, and that there was even individuals who took to using metal detectors to search boxes and cases to kind of pick which boxes had these insert cards contained within them. Insert cards, yes, they were a game changer, And the 1994 Rookie Signature Series, again, the autographs were hand numbered, but these were autographs of up-and-coming stars, up-and-coming rookies. So, boy, if you got the rookie card and their signature, that was a real find. 1997 Flair Showcase Legacy Masterpiece was the first card where the serial number was 1/1. In other words, they produced one card, and if you got it, you got the one out of the one card that was available. So it made it very kind of limited, so to speak, very much so a short print. Topps 2002 Minis, T206. This is kind of the beginning of the card industry tapping into the nostalgia craze and basically putting current players on nostalgic kind of card designs, and kind of they just are basically modernizing the originals. And we have a whole kind of change in the cards in terms of offering cards that were on other older card designs. So we also now have, in addition to these kind of chrome and refractor and these inserts, we have now relic cards. So that is included with the card is a piece of jersey, pants, bats, or gloves. So 1996 introduced Upper Deck game used jerseys. 1997 Upper Deck introduced game used bats. 2001 Fleer introduced game used pants. 2001 Upper Deck used game used gloves. And now we have 2000 Upper Deck game used baseball. In 2001, Donruss Stadium seats, so an actual seat of the stands, basically was in the cards. 2000 Stadium Club game used dirt. So dirt on the field was actually put in the field of a game that was played on that field. 2000 Fleer game used hat, and 2000 Fleer game used shoes. So pretty much every article of clothing, as well as the seats, the bat, and the dirt was seen. And we even have more. So we have game used patch. Now these patches were part of the uniform, but in addition, the patch card feature parts of the number on the jersey or the logo of the player or player and team names. They also had Diamond King used laundry patches. So we have cards with the laundry patches of the players. 2008 Upper Deck haircut relic. So we're actually including the hair of the player in the card, and going back as far as Joe DiMaggio. But even interesting, they even introduced cards through Alan Gittner, hair strands of ex-presidents. So we have access to these players' hair, and that's included on the cards. Kind of really a continuum of ways to kind of create new and different cards and make the collecting world really see a lot of unique changes. But nothing has been as big or will be big, according to the prognosticators, as what is happening in terms of the digital baseball cards. So the digital baseball cards offer for purchase exclusively online. So now you can't go to a store and buy them. You can't go to a hobby shop. You can't go to a collector's neighbor who's collecting cards and get them. You have to get them online. And you go online on an app on your phone and so forth, and you can pick the various cards. Your cards are immediately available online and download it. And that's kind of what people want. They want that instant gratification. They don't want to take days in which to get their cards. They usually the standard packs of the cards, it takes time to have the design, to package, and to ship them. And we wait for sets to be released once or twice a year. These are kind of automatically available to you. Once they come out, they're on, and you can kind of log them down. And so the companies that are competing in this area are the Panini Instant, and then Topps Apps and Topps Bund, Topps Major League Baseball NFT collection, and ESPN. So much is kind of happening in this world of these digital cards, which sounds odd because a lot of people kind of want to feel them and see them and look at them and take them out and sort them and so forth. And this is kind of a different approach. Now, there's a lot of terminology within this digital. It's kind of new. It's kind of changing, complicated, and so forth. But so you have something called NFT aggregates. NFT aggregates gather listings from multiple marketplaces and platforms in one place. So they're kind of like the middleman that's kind of organizing all this and buying and selling and so forth. This provides buyers with a simplified interface to compare prices and acquire NFTs from different sources. So what are NFTs? Well, they are non-fungible tokens. What is that? Well, these NFTs are built using the same kind of programming as what many people are getting familiar with, more so in Europe than here, but what we call cryptocurrency and digital or virtual Bitcoin being example. So they are encoded with an underlying software. Fungible is exchanged for another. So one thing is exchanged for another using the computer, so to speak. NFT represents a digital file, for example, imaging, videos, a piece of text. So a lot of artwork kind of is made available in this format. So the good thing is, and the thing that probably is going to move the train, is that you can own or sell the same way you do baseball cards, and that purchasing sometimes a pack are randomly placed in packs or set up for auction. And for people, again, because they're all getting into this kind of investing and making money from cards, that it represents a source of revenue. So people can buy and sell players, and very much so in terms of combining this idea with fantasy baseball and fantasy football, what have you, and that there is a company through which you can kind of go this route called Sorari, which says select your favorite card, and then you basically, they're on your team and they're yours. To basically trade or sell. Now, NFT is one of a kind of blockchain. So a blockchain digital asset, rather than a tangible card, they have an NFT. So it's not a tangible thing, but basically you own it. One of a kind digital and data asset, collectible sports card that cannot be interchanged. The status symbol for a lot of people saying you can and you do own it. And it costs crazy amounts of money, but there is potential in terms of the world of computers, apps, and digital formats. It is an unerasable ownership record within a blockchain and access to its use. So in other words, people can download the picture and so forth, but you have ownership. It is your total ownership of that particular card and player. And it's irrelevant that can be copied because it's your ownership. Okay, so how does the blockchain work? Well, again, as I said, it's kind of a coming up new science, and I'm not going to go over to it as far as every aspect of it. It would take too much explanation, but there are kind of diagrams and so forth. We'll kind of give you step by step exactly what we're talking about. Some people understand Bitcoin, they'll get it right away and so forth, but it is just basically kind of has to do with computers, data, digitizing, and so forth. So that's a little bit about some of the ways that our cards, if we know what we have and what their print run is and their availability and uniqueness and times and so forth, can kind of give you the knowledge that will help in terms of when you are getting ready to sell or trade, that they can be profitable to you. So if you are interested in learning more about profiting and collecting cards, and be sure to follow us below and hit the subscribe button, and feel free to view our library of YouTube videos. Also check out our eBay store, where we have available for sale many of the cards shown on these videos. So that's it for today. Take the rest of the day off, and we'll talk later.